The biggest blockbuster of 2024 has been released, and at 3 p.m. on February 29th, my ass was at my local AMC to be entertained. And entertained I was. My name's Elisa. If you've never met me, my name's Elisa, and today I am here to give you my honest, candid 2 cents about Dune Part 2. I've seen Dune Part 1 5 times. In fact, the 5th time that I watched it was at 11 a.m. on February 29th, before I saw the 3 o'clock showing. I just wanted the story to be fresh on my brain. I love that movie. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I have ever sat through that long of a movie that many times. And here's a little story, actually. You know that movie, The Revenant? The one Leo got, like, the only Oscar Leo got? You know what I'm talking about. I told my sister that was a good movie so that she would watch it, and once she confirmed it was a good movie, I watched it. But I say that to say my time is precious, just like anybody's. Dune Part 2, I will probably be watching 6 times. And you know what? I think I like this little life. I've always wanted to be a movie critic, and now I am. Let's just jump in. I actually want to give you guys all of my experience. Let's start with the theater experience in general. You know what I mean? I made it a point to go the day that it opened. I had something to do in the evening, so I was just like, damn, I'm gonna have to only go early. But lucky for me, it was a full house. I love the community during a full house, you know, like that's why I love a Marvel movie. Like Dune is starting to become that thing, and like there's Timmy in it, and then Austin Butler and Florence and Zendaya, and like obviously they're gonna have some followers see them on that big screen. And we were all right there at 3 p.m. on a Thursday, right there. The guy next to me was in scrubs at 3 p.m. on a Thursday. I don't know if he had just gotten off, if he took an extended lunch, it doesn't matter, because we were there for the same reason, to be entertained. And entertained we were. The synopsis. Dune Part 2 is about Paul Atreides uniting with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against conspirators who destroyed his family, facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe to prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. It was so good. Cast. Let's talk about that really quickly. We have Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Christopher Walken, Dave Bautista, Josh Brolin. The cast was stacked. It was stacked. There's another name that I want to mention, but before I do that, I want to just say, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, this is your final warning, spoiler alert. Anya Taylor-Joy. It's Anya Taylor-Joy, and she is Alia Atreides, Paul's unborn son. What? Unborn sister. She made a quick cameo though, so we're gonna see more of her in Part 3. There will be one. There will be one. There just will be one. Back to the theater experience. The moment Nicole Kidman, I see her right foot in that silver leg pant, I knew. When that silver suit enters the chat, I exit planet Earth. I am wherever the movie is. I am in that universe. So let's get into it. Dune Part 2. Part 2 was a lot more about the Fremen, Harkonnen. We got some Emperor action. Of course, the Bene Gesserit played a big role. So we have about 3 storylines going during this nearly 3-hour runtime. And I just want to say quickly, like, I loved the fact that this movie was 2 hours and 46 minutes. If it's good, let's have longer movies. You know what I mean? I am not going to be talking about this in chronological order, so let's start with the Harkonnens. Obviously, we knew they were insane savages, but this go-round, Dune Part 2, we get a real peek inside of the Harkonnen Empire. They're all insane, but I would argue that nobody is more insane than Feud, Austin Butler's character. Mr. Austin Butler did lose his facial hair, his Elvis accent, his mind, but not an ounce of talent or beauty. We are introduced to him in his element. It's his birthday, and his uncle wants to give him a gift, which is to hop in a ring in front of their whole community and kill a man. Yeah. not skimping on the crazy. Once he gets into this ring, he realizes that his uncle set him up to fight an advanced expert warrior. Feud, I'm just gonna say that. Feud, you know who I'm talking about. He almost lost his life. He was cutting it close. You know what I'm saying? But he pulled through. And when he did not wait a moment to waltz right up to his uncle and be like, did you just try to kill me? Did you just try to murder me? And his uncle's like, you're stronger for it. That little segment right there was all of the backstory I needed on why he is where he is mentally. Let's bounce over to the Emperor, Gahdamn IV, and Princess Irulan. In part 1, the Reverend Mother, Vladimir Harkonnen, and another high-up Harkonnen were conversing in the silent room about bringing down the House Atreides. The Emperor was behind all of it, and now the Emperor is trying to save his ass. He's doing major damage control because he fears losing the throne. At this point, we're going to get to the Fremen. They're standing their ground. They're interrupting these very pale folks' production. And it's creating some buzz between the two houses. The movie starts with Princess Irulan, a Bene Gesserit, journaling. She's a very intuitive woman. She's a Bene Gesserit. She knows how to get into people's heads. She's very in touch with her own head, her body. Like, they, for crying out loud, know how to depoison themselves when they've drank poison. She has an instinctual thought. She's like, what if Paul Atreides is still alive? And she is silenced. She sits back in her place. She's very obedient, a teacher's pet, if you will. The Emperor is just the Emperor. He has Bene Gesserit all around him. They need to infiltrate a new home. House Atreides is done, so they send a Bene Gesserit to House Harkonnen. She seduces Feed. She gets into his head. She gets pregnant. She goes back to Reverend Mother and Princess Irulan and reports this. He's weak sexually, obviously. That's why she was able to get impregnated. She chose the baby to be a girl. This is going to be their ticket into the Harkonnen house. But here's the thing. Now, I don't know that this is exactly what happened, but it seems like Lady Jessica may have done this to Lord Leto so she could infiltrate House Atreides. The Fremen. Paul and Jessica Atreides are trying to find a seat at the Fremen table. Paul is showing signs of being their messiah, but Paul doesn't want this power. He didn't even want to take over for his dad in the last movie. He's been having visions. He believes he is exactly where he needs to be with the Fremen, and he also knows that the Fremen are going to lead him to get revenge on the people he needs to get revenge on. Within the first 10 minutes, boom, it's the first action scene, and it's the Harkonnen looking for the Fremen, and possibly they could be looking for Paul and Jessica. I'm not entirely sure that they know that they're alive. The Fremen escape, and they're all led back to the headquarters. You would think that Paul is Justin Bieber walking through a Times Square Trader Joe's with no security. Half of the people were worshiping him, half of the people were cursing him. There was somebody keeping a close eye on him, making sure he was safe. It's Chani. Boom, Paul already knows how to fight. He's very intuitive. He learns the language. He's integrating himself into their culture, and even the haters can't hate on that. You know what I mean? We do see a lot of development with Chani and Paul's relationship. That's going to be in the next segment. Right now, we're not going to get into that, but I loved that so much. But I just needed to say that because she was alongside of him for a lot of his journey. She was showing him the ropes, but she always had Mr. Paul's back. Mr. Paul always had a side eye on her too. So Paul enters the war with them. He starts helping them, and eventually he starts leading them. His family has been fighting the Harkonnens for centuries. He knows them like the back of his hand. He knows the way they move. He knows the way that they think. So even though he doesn't want this position of power, that gives him the upper hand more than they have, and that pushes him into power, furthering people's belief that he is the Lisan al-Gaib, and he's forced to step into this position of power whether he likes it or not, whether it's for the House Atreides or not. Let's get into Lady Jessica, because that lady, Stilgar, really believes in Paul. He knows the powers of his mother. She can fight. She's a Bene Gesserit. Their Reverend Mother, also a Bene Gesserit, is dying and they need a replacement. So he says, Lady Jessica, will you do this? And she says no. And he says, well, you can die if you don't. And she said, well, okay, I guess I better do it then. They try to get her to drink some poison. The Reverend Mother uses the voice on Jessica for her to drink it. Now, Rebecca Ferguson, for this 30 seconds of her acting being poisoned, Oscar. As she is taking the poison, it's infiltrating her body. Her and the Reverend Mother are connected. Boom. They see her fetus. And then the Reverend Mother's like, motherfuck. I didn't know she was pregnant with her evil ass. That Reverend Mother was fucking evil. She said this whole ritual talking about Lady Jessica's soul would be freed, and free it was. After she drank that poison, she was actually gone. She lived through it. She started plotting with her unborn baby. They were having conversations about making people believe Paul was the Messiah. Her and Paul, they were pretty separate. They had different roles to play. Paul was, building a relationship with the army, with Chani, and Reverend Mother was building a relationship with the believers that had weak minds, then the ones that had stronger minds. And then she wanted to make her way to the south to the fundamentalists. So Lady Jessica she's lights out. I don't know who this lady is in her body. The romance. It's time to talk about it. We get the pleasure of seeing Chani and Paul, aka Usul, build their relationship from nothing. We get to see the peak and we get to see the fucking fall. I said everybody was making fun of him. She was caring about him. She was believing him. She was helping him. And he didn't take that lightly. He actually took that as a sign of love. They started shacking up. They started making love. There were no love scenes, but you get the gist. She was comforting him during his nightmares. We saw a new side of Chani, a very loving side of Chani. And Paul, I believe he loved her. I believe she loved him. But unfortunately, when you love something, you gotta let it go. Paul did not want this level of power people were putting on him. He didn't want to be treated any differently. He just wanted to help them and also take down the people that took down his family. Chani didn't want him in that high level of power because she has seen her people be failed so many times by so many people claiming to be who they aren't. She didn't want her people having any false hope. While she didn't want him to boss up in that way, it came from a good place. His visions continue. The voice of the people is in his ear, and before you know it, he's drinking the poison his mother drank. And he is stepping into this new level of power, which consequently does end their relationship. Maybe it wasn't really over in that moment, but it was over very quickly after. The finale encapsulates so much. The end of Vladimir Harkonnen, the end of the Harkonnens, the reestablishment of the House Atreides, the end of Chani and Paul. Shit, maybe the end of Chani. With that cliffhanger, the Dune team. That was some good ass work right there. Maybe about a year and a half ago, I watched this video by Thomas Flight. I'm gonna link it. It's called Dune Does Sound Differently. Something like that, something along those lines. And ever since I watched that, I really kind of got into musical scoring a lot more, and Dune is one of my favorite movies, the first one and the second, as well as the Marvel movies. Marvel is scored very, very well. I don't even know everything that it encompasses, but that is such a big part of why I want to rate this movie a 9.5 out of 10. The acting was phenomenal. The visuals were phenomenal. The technology that they used to bring these edits to life were out of this world. They used that $200 million budget correctly. The fight scenes, there were so many people on camera in so many of the scenes. 9.5 out of 10, phenomenal. So please watch and form your own opinions, because there was so much of the movie that I left out. I didn't even talk about Josh Brolin and how he helped with the ambush and gave them the firepower. I didn't even get into all that. I said 2 hour 46 minute runtime. YouTube video. But I left an awesome review on Letterboxd. You can go check that out. That'll be linked below. This video will be coming out Sunday. Now, Sunday may just become my new days. Oh my god. And if you liked any of this, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. I just love to be entertained. And I like to entertain you. Okay, bye. I will see you next week. Go watch Dune 2.